So welcome back to another episode of Living with Audacity. I am your host, Aisha, and it is always a pleasure to be here today. Can I just take a second to do a little 1-2 big up to the background that's happening today? Because listen, okay? I am feeling myself. I'm feeling myself not because of the dress, but really feeling myself because of the dress and the way that it looks in this background. Okay? I need to just put that out there. So we are coming here today. We are here to talk about owning your story and embracing the messy, unpolished parts. Now, I know this is a little bit taboo because I think in the world and the time of social media, we're always supposed to show the perfect parts, right? That everything's going well, our kids are amazing, our partners are well, our house is clean, our business is thriving, I'm thriving. And while there's incredible, great, things that are happening in my life, the truth is there's a lot of messy parts, okay? There's a lot of things in the middle that are just middling because life is lifing. But I think, again, as we are living with audacity, we're willing to take those bold steps into really unpacking and discovering what our purpose, our power is. Embracing the messy, unpolished parts is actually where the real power is. Okay? As I've said before in multiple episodes, perfection does not exist. It does not exist. And I think this conversation is about allowing those who often find themselves, and I am certainly one. Hi, my name is Aisha, and I'm a, past perfectionist. Yeah. As someone who would make it her business and it wasn't about showing out. It was really just in my head that I needed my house needed to be clean. My kids needed to look like this. My work life needed to be this. My relationship needed to be this. And I spent so much time hyper-focusing on this concept of perfectionism that I wasn't really learning anything. I was just struggling to try to maintain. And when I got comfortable and actually had a mentor that said this to me, that said, Aisha, the messy, unpolished parts is actually where your life is. Your messy, unpolished parts is really where the learning happens. Your messy and unpolished parts is where your true power exists, because your ability to thrive, learn, grow, and evolve in those places, that's depth, right? Showing something shiny and pretty, yeah, maybe that's the end outcome. Maybe it's not even real. But the unpolished parts is where it is. So this episode is to relinquish and emancipate anyone who steps into spaces feeling like everything needs to be so put together. Now, again, I'm not saying just let everything go. I'm not saying that. Don't just relinquish life. But I want us to get comfortable in this journey of living with audacity to embrace the unpolished parts, the messy things that are happening in our life. Because again, that's real. No one who's watching this podcast, anybody who is connected to anyone, lives in a glass house. Well, let me take it back. Maybe if you're rich, maybe you do live in a glass house. But in that glass house is a lot of messiness. Let me just put that out there, right? So I want to talk about the myth of needing to create this perfect story as a way to kick off today's episode, and really talk about sometimes society's pressure, right? So it's not just what's happening in our head, but it's this narrative, right? I've talked a lot about this in this podcast around the assumptions and the expectations that many of us feel to show up as this perfect, curated, fully knowledge, fully aware individual. And meanwhile, in our heads, we're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm making the right step. There is a myth that we have perpetuated in society that says everything needs to look good. You can't have a piece of lint on your couch. You can't have a hair out of place. Your makeup always has to be on fleek. Your clothes need to be pressed and ironed, even though that's a bit of a West Indian thing. My father still irons his pants, but that's another note. Right? We have operated in a life that says perfection is a must. And the truth is it doesn't exist, right? Our success story when we're living with audacity is to be able to say, listen, about 6 months ago, I was a hot mess. There was a lot happening in my life. And look where I am today, right? The journey that I've been on these last 6 years in particular, believe me when I tell you, they have been anything but perfect and linear. There's been a lot of mess. There's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of losses, but there's been so many more wins. And the moment I let go and relinquish that need to appear perfect is the moment even better things started to happen. And so I want us to understand the power of imperfection, right? The truth is people relate to your challenges. We, yes, will gather because there's great things happening to us. But the truth is, if you really think about the way life operates, we often connect with people because we know someone else understands what we're going through. That challenge, that hard time where you're like, girl, me too. is often what bonds us, right? Yes, we are here to celebrate all the great things and we connect because great things happen. But if you really think about how you came into play with some of the most closest people in your life or your circle, it's often been in those hard moments, in those challenging moments, right? I think something else that I've learned and that I love to share is that vulnerability is actually a leadership trait. The ability to be a leader doesn't mean that you're always getting everything right. I'm doing this incredible youth workshop through a Phoebe Groove School with an opportunity to just curate and create an environment for young people to self-actualize, to self-discover, and really understand that they can be leaders now. And one of the things that I share with them is being vulnerable and being able to say where you're struggling, where you're challenged, where there's a barrier is actually the sign of leadership. Because any top leader will tell you, I don't know anything. Sorry, they know some things, but they'll say, I don't know everything. But what I do know is when I need to ask for help. What I do know is when I'm struggling and I know I need to tap on the shoulder of someone who does know in order to help me. That is what leadership is. Living with audacity, again, doesn't mean we're living linear, doesn't mean we're living perfect. It means that we're also willing to be vulnerable and be able to say, listen, I'm on my journey to greatness, but I know along this journey, I need some help. I need someone to tap in. I need someone to show me what to do or give me instructions or give me directions or give me some support, right? Vulnerability is such an incredible trait and it happens in the messiness, right? Vulnerability doesn't happen when we're out here trying to strive for perfection. Vulnerability happens when we're in that unpolished life. But it's such a learning and powerful tool because that is, again, where we start to unpack and really discover who we are, like to the depth, to the core of who we are. I think another important part is why is it that we need to own our story, right? A lot of times in times of hardship, we want to kind of distance ourselves. We want to put it, I've shared this, in this cute little box that sits on the side, maybe pretty like a little Tiffany box where people just think it looks good, but they don't know that it's some of our hardest stories that exist in that box. We've worked really hard. I, again, will speak for myself. I've worked really hard in the past to appear as though things aren't unraveling when they are. And what I've learned in this journey is that I need that unravel. And again, when I say need, and when I'm talking about putting it out there, I'm not talking about going on social media and telling all your business. Some people do that, and that is a way for them to heal. Sometimes really putting it out there and receiving that, you know what, I'm in that same boat is what people need. But some of us just need to be able to vocalize it. So you got to pick what works for you. So I'm not telling you how to go about sharing. But our power and owning our story and being able to say, yeah, I'm in a mess right now. Like things are hard. I'm struggling. Owning our story and being able to own the second part of that chapter that says, I thrived. I thrived through that time. I can see now where I was struggling. I can see where I was in the dark, but I am able to look back and think to myself, wow, you've done good for yourself, Aisha. Like you've worked hard to get out of that. Own your story, right? Because that again becomes part of your toolbox. I think I had said a little while ago, I had this quote that said, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. And what that means is that you've owned your story. It means that when you find yourself back in a place that feels like it's deja vu, like I've done this before, when you've owned your story, you're able to say, nope, we're not doing this again. I know what this feels like. I've been down this path before, but because my story is now in my toolbox, that it no longer is just on the side, but it's something that I value as a learned lesson. Believe me when I tell you, you will not find yourself in the same predicament, right? That is the power of owning your story and being willing to, again, share those unpolished parts of who we are. The other piece is that healing truly happens when we stop editing the hard parts. When we are experiencing hardship, our natural human desire is to move through it so that we get to the healing part, right? Sometimes we will just outright deny that what we're dealing with is hard, and so that we can be in a place of goodness. You know what happens? One thing comes left and implodes. And we find ourselves not even just where we were before, but further back. And the reason being because we are unwilling or uncomfortable with the healing journey of sitting in the parts that are hard and sitting in the messy parts and sitting in the unpolished areas of our life where we are forced to confront the ugliness is what we call it. Again, I was someone who was like, nope, I'm having a hard time, but I'm going to pretend that everything is good. I'm just going to what do? We are going to keep ourselves busy. I'm going to make sure my mind is occupied so I don't have to think about it, but it always shows up. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't just show up verbally. It shows up physically. It shows up mentally. It shows up in the random rash that your body comes out with. It shows up in the headaches that you can't seem to let go of, even if you take Tylenol or Advil. It shows up. Healing is required, and healing in its authentic state, right? Editing parts of your hardship do not serve you. They only create longevity in that healing journey, or hold you longer in a place that you're actually trying to avoid being in. And so really practice this mantra that says, I'm still figuring it out, and that's okay. Nobody has the answers out the gate. And if you do, please tell me what you're doing, because I'd like a few answers to a few things that are happening in my life right now, right? But the truth is, I'm still figuring it out, and that's okay. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to still be in the process of learning and discovering and trying to figure out what's the right path, right? I wouldn't be in this place if I had just stayed stuck in my mindset 6 years ago, or even 3 years ago, or even last year, right? I have to be willing to figure it out even in the hardest moments of what's happening around me. And I think the last piece of this is around audacity means showing up as you are, right? I talk about being authentic as though it's like breathing. I was in a place in my life where I was not authentic, and it was so difficult. I used to watch myself or hear myself not be authentic and think, girl, will you stop? Like, you're making your own self nauseous. I'm annoying my own self by not being authentic, right? The truth is, the messy parts are part of our authentic being. Those shadows are such a part of who we are. Now, again, I'm not saying everybody needs to see all of you, but be authentic, be true, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror, right? And believe me, if there's something that I've learned, it's a lesson that I really impart on my children. People know when you're faking. As good as you might think of an actor you are, eventually that fakeness starts to pour out or ooze out in some shape or form. People will eventually show you themselves, eh? You can only mask and be who you're not for so long. But there will be an incident, there will be a situation of which your true self comes in, and you're going to have to reconcile that. You're going to have to reconcile it with the people who you were faking with. You're going to have to reconcile it, most importantly, with yourself. So just come out the gate authentic. Is it hard? Absolutely. Because our authentic self is not welcome in every place. Being your authentic being doesn't mean that you're welcome in every space, but I'm going to tell you, not every space is meant for you. And when you're authentic and you understand who you are, then you realize this is actually not the space I even want to be in to begin with, right? So make sure that you are working hard to be authentic and not who you should be, right? This is a part of the messiness side of living with audacity, right? Your story, every part of it, good, bad, ugly, shade, happy, makes up who you are, and we have to embrace it. Again, human nature dictates that we're really comfortable in the great place, but we want to kind of put the shadows aside. We can't. They're part of our journey. They're a part of living with audacity. It's where we honestly learn the most about ourselves, right? And so I really want to encourage you to step into this space, to embrace the unmessiness, to be willing to even share the imperfect, unpolished parts of who you are. That has been a really big journey for me, right? I spent very early on in my business journey of just always looking cute. And listen, I got 3 kids, okay? Come to my house on a Saturday and see if I look like this. I do not. I mean, I'm still cute. There's still a lipstick and an earring, but there's no fedora. There's no polish sitting up. No, it's me just trying to grind and get myself through a Saturday, to be very honest. But it's part of who I am. It's part of my authentic being. It's part of what I feel has made me great. It's part of what I've learned, right? As I step into my audacity. Like, not everything's going to be perfect. Not everything's going to be pretty, but everything's going to be real. And I appreciate that, right? I've learned to appreciate that. And I know it can be difficult, again, when we live in a society where everything, like every part of you is scrutinized, what you say, how you dress, how you look. But if there's one thing that I actually really appreciate about this next generation, is they are out here living audaciously and authentically, and they don't give up, you know what, okay? We can learn a little something from this new generation. They're living their audacious self, and if you don't like it, keep it moving. We have to be able to embrace that. We have to be willing to, again, as I said, share where we feel comfortable. So I'm not here to tell you just put all your business out there, but where you feel safe. Because what you will find is probably the greatest lesson about yourself, your greatest awareness, the deepest, most beautiful roots of who you are exist in those unpolished parts, not always in the curated, appear cute perfection part. And so I always give a call to action because, I always like to give a little bit of homework for those who are watching, who are subscribing, right? What are the unmessy parts about you? What are the unpolished parts that maybe people don't know? Or the unpolished parts about yourself that you really work hard to hide, but know that they need to be freed in order for you to really step in your audacious self. You don't have to put it out online. You could even send me a DM, right? I'm a vault also. But I say that because I want us to challenge ourselves around not just showing the best version of ourselves. Show the real, authentic version of yourself. That is where your power lies. That's where your boldness lies. That's where your beauty and your purpose exists, is in those unpolished parts. And so as you continue to watch these podcasts, hopefully, again, what you start to realize is that living with audacity, I say it over and over again, isn't about living linear. It isn't about being perfect. It isn't always about showing up coiffed and manicured and all the things. Living with audacity is just our relentless and a relentless commitment to just evolving, growing, discovering, undoing, unlearning, and becoming our most, the best version of ourselves, whatever that means for us. Okay? And so I want to wish you all an incredible day. I don't know when you're watching this, but hopefully you're watching it. Hopefully you're watching this at the start of the week. Again, I like to do these podcasts and release them at the top of the week because I like to kickstart people's week off on a high note, but maybe I'm ending your week. Maybe I'm starting your Saturday. I don't really know. Let me know. Share, comment. Also let me know are the topics that you want to hear. But at the end of the day, I want you to continue to live audaciously. I want you to stay bold. I want you to stay authentic. Most importantly, I want you to be unapologetic. I want to thank you for joining me on another episode of Living with Audacity. Have a great day and see you next episode.